At this point here, I feel it's not really that big of a secret anymore as to how big of a place in my heart Dragon Ball truly holds. With the recent passing away of series creator Akira Toriyama, this video was one that was honestly quite difficult to make. So, with that being said here guys, be sure to let me know what you like and enjoy about this video down below. And if you want to see more content like this in the future from me, going forward here, with everything that's been happening since Akira Toriyama-san's passing away and whatnot, this has been a very, and I can't emphasize that enough, very odd time to be not just a Dragon Ball fan, but a fan of, well, all things anime and manga related in general. This has been perhaps one of the most eye-opening times, to say the least, you could say. And with it being now almost an entire 2 months since Akira Toriyama's, well, unfortunate departure from our world here, it's really been different without his influence here. I mean, of course, stating the obvious here, Dragon Ball isn't going anywhere anytime soon. This series is one that is incredibly popular and is far and away too large to ever just be put back on the shelf here and left alone. It's got too much, well, marketplace potential here. Let's get real. You know, that's what it's really for. And not just that, but the potential as well for all the different story arcs that could possibly be made here with Akira Toriyama's understudy Toyotaro at the helm. That's really opening the door here to an infinite amount of possibilities going forward for the future of the Dragon Ball series. Just at the top of my head here. Speaking of which though, this video has no script to it whatsoever. This is just me basically going off on my tangent here and doing what, well, I like to do best. And that's sharing with you guys what I'm incredibly passionate about here. And in today's video, that's, well, all things Dragon Ball. So, with that being said, getting that short introduction out of the way, we're going to go back though and review my personal history with the Dragon Ball series. So, before I ever got a hold of the manga, for me, it was two things primarily. One, the original Dragon Ball Z anime that was always on Cartoon Network, and also the games. This was my first true exposure to anything anime or manga related as a young child, and opening the floodgates, you could say, ever since Dragon Ball's introduction to my life. Well, the rest is quite honestly history. I remember as a kid, at I forget exactly what age, but gazing at my television screen, watching Goku fight against Vegeta on Earth, and that truly epic Kamehameha versus Gallic Gun beam struggle clash was what did it for me. After that moment, I was sold. Everything and anything Dragon Ball related, if I could get my hands on it, I would have it. I remember in particular the original collectible card game from Score Entertainment from back in the day. These cards nowadays go for an unreasonable amount of money, just from what I've been seeing on eBay and the such more recent months now for this current year. So not only was I introduced to Dragon Ball, but of course the great wide and vast world of, well, collectible card games and such. That was, I'd say, the second time that I was also introduced to Dragon Ball and its story. And ever since then, it's just been a true staple and an integral part of my life here. You know, Dragon Ball has been something that's gotten me through a lot of dark days, a lot of times of uncertainty, and oftentimes of just facing down the sheer unknown. I'm not going to go into too many details here, of course, without getting quite as personal as I'd like to be, but for what it's worth here, Dragon Ball quite literally saved my life. This is one series that I will always back, no matter what. Unless, of course, quality goes completely down the drain and out the gutter, then yeah, I'd probably have a lot of thinking to do there. For what it's worth, you know, the original series, Dragon Ball Z, GT, and Super, none of them are perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but hey, they tell a compelling story. They have a lot of vivid backgrounds and environments to share with the viewer, and of course we can't forget that cast of characters. One of the most truly iconic sets of characters for that matter, literal decades, with regard to video animation here. and of course the printed page. Ever since that point though, for me being initially introduced to the Dragon Ball series through the Budokai games, later on the Tenkaichi games as well, and of course watching Dragon Ball Z and any of the movies that also were able to air on Cartoon Network whenever I could be able to catch them at all the crazy times that they were airing and whatnot in the United States. After that, it's just always been a part of my life that I've had by my side whenever I needed to pick myself up and bring myself out of that darker place and, into the light, so to speak. Dragon Ball was there. Whether it was the original manga or the anime, it's always just been there for me, and it's one of those things that I feel I can always come back to, no matter how old I may get. One thing's for certain though, and that's that I'll always love Dragon Ball. Unless it happens to jump the shark, and things really start to go downhill and degrade in quality. But for now, as things stand, at least in my opinion, Dragon Ball's not going anywhere from my life. It's one thing that I've always been able to count on, like a trusted best friend to have by my side, through thick and thin, to be able to pick my spirits up, like I said, when I'm feeling down. All in all though, it was quite the whirlwind effect when I first initially heard about Akira Toriyama-san passing away. It was something I didn't want to believe at first, and I'd say for that first initial week there, at the beginning of March, I thought it was almost a rumor or something that was false. Something that couldn't have possibly have been true for someone as private and considerate as Toriyama-san. It really says something when almost every other trending topic is related to Dragon Ball across all of YouTube here. And I remember for that first week, it was nothing but Dragon Ball. Everywhere I went, everything was just related to Dragon Ball. So I'd say after that first initial week there of being in complete doubt and disbelief in everything that had happened, it finally hit me then. And it hurt. I would say that it hurt more than... I could even argue that it hurt even more than any other Kamehameha wave from Goku, no matter what form he might be. Despite the fact that I've honestly, personally never had the privilege to have met Akira Toriyama here, that didn't change a thing though. I don't normally mourn over celebrities or entertainers or anyone from the industry of that kind, but something about Toriyama just not being around anymore really shook me and sent a complete shock to my system. I never thought it would have happened like that. I always thought that he would have been at least around possibly 100 years old, if not older, and just lived out the rest of his remaining days in seclusion, away from the prying eyes of society and any sort of media that want to get the latest attention from him or the latest comments on what his thoughts are, regarding any sort of spin-off projects that he may or may not have had his name on. It always was something, though, that I, again, never thought would actually have happened so soon. But for what it's worth, going forward, it's at least a good sign that out of all this, that Dragon Ball is not going anywhere. I know that as of currently, the manga is on hold from Toyotaro, Akira Toriyama's assistant, who is now at the helm, it would seem, for the Dragon Ball manga. For the anime, though, that's another question entirely. We have no real news right now regarding if the Super anime is going to return, although we do have Dragon Ball Daima, hopefully still premiering by the end of this year, sometime in the fall, so that's something to look forward to. With regard, though, to Dragon Ball Super, it's really no bet as to when or if it will even come back. It's just one of those things that we'll have to see as time moves on here, as we get farther and farther away from this initial time for Akira Toriyama's family, and of course the fan base as well, by and large. This has been a very eye-opening revelation, from myself initially discovering Toriyama-san having, passed away almost 2 months later. This time, though, has given me a lot to think over and think about, as it's really helped me not only really appreciate Dragon Ball as a series a lot more, especially since it was my first real series, and opened the floodgates for the anime world in general for me, but also every other real series that I happen to care about here. It just really puts everything into a grander perspective of sorts, and it honestly has helped me to gain a lot of clarity here. and not just appreciating, like I said, the series that I've grown up with, but new series that I'm currently watching and reading now, but also every other facet really of my life. You know, it's just one of those things that unfortunately it happened, and the time frame that it did, it couldn't have been any sooner. But I think for what it's worth, hopefully wherever Akira Toriyama is, he's no longer in pain or suffering or anything of that like. I know though that he'll always be proud of his work on Dragon Ball and of course Dr. Slump and the artwork he did for Chrono Trigger as well as the Dragon Quest series. I know for a fact he could not have been probably more proud of himself and just amazed that he had the opportunities that he had granted to him. And you could almost say it was almost like Shenron in a way. You know, somehow he was able to get his wish granted in being not just a mangaka, but just an overall wonderful human being, despite the fact that I've never met him before. And unfortunately, I never will be able to. But irregardless of that fact, his influence, though, is going to live on. That I know. Major anime today owes so much to him and his timeless influence here that it's not even a question in my mind. I have no doubt that his legacy will live on, and not just Dragon Ball, but his art style. It's become so iconic here over the last few decades, to say the least, is something that will not be forgotten by time. At least not for a very, very long time. But hey, I mean, who's to say? It's just one of those things, though, like I said, that I could look at almost any other Dragon Quest game or artwork for Chrono Trigger, and I could instantly point out and recognize firsthand if it's Akira Toriyama's or not. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be 100% right all the time. Let's be real here, and, you know, I'm going to be honest with you guys about that. I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I've made mistakes too, not just over the course of my life, but of course with this channel as well. You know, so, like I said, I'm not perfect. Akira Toriyama was obviously not perfect either, but he did do a lot of things right. And I also know for a fact that he made a lot of people, and I mean a lot of people, all over the world extremely happy. And I can't imagine that amount of praise and respect that he garnered over the decades was taken lightly at all, or advantage of. I really truly feel though that Akira Toriyama's influence is something that cannot be understated here, as he basically paved the way for modern shonen today, and of course Shonen Jump comics all around the globe. It's really telling here though how influential his art style has been to not just of course myself and the millions of fans around the world, but for instance Masashi Kishimoto, the creator of Naruto, Tite Kubo, the creator of Bleach, who actually happened to have emerged a little bit after Akira Toriyama was on the scene for Shonen Jump. You know, so to have them all pay their respects like that was something I honestly couldn't have asked for, and it was truly beautiful to see. All of these different mangaka, though, happen to have drawn Dragon Ball in their own unique signature styles. And if you guys are ever curious about that, I really, really recommend looking that up if you have a few minutes to just appreciate the artwork of Akira Toriyama here and just what it would be like if they were drawn in a different style. I thought it was pretty cool, though, all things considered. And it was a really nice tribute to help, well, each artist pay their individual respects from across the industry here. What is Dragon Ball going to be like without Akira Toriyama at the helm? I can say though for the manga, hopefully Toyotaro will keep it in good hands, and that will hopefully continue on in its own direction. As for the anime related side of things, I'm personally looking forward to not just Dragon Ball Daima, but also any sort of new movies that also will be released in the coming years as well. I would love to get a sequel to Dragon Ball Superhero, to have Gohan in another main character type role. That's always awesome to see. I'd say though that, with that aside, I would love for Dragon Ball Daima to kind of take over then and either be a sequel to Super or some sort of spin-off that could hopefully have the fan base finally get behind something all together and not be so divided up and fragmented into all these sub-communities. It's just not good for, well, the series in general. And I know that Akira Toriyama would probably not have wanted that. Probably just wanted the fans to enjoy his work for what it was. And that's what I've been doing since I was in my adolescent years, and that's what I'll be, well, continuing to do from here on out. You know, some of these deeper messages and all that are always nice to see in Dragon Ball, such as the symbolism and whatnot, and of course the many references and homages to Journey to the West, and all the other different world religions that Akira Toriyama has subtly pointed to sometimes here and there throughout the duration of the Dragon Ball series. You know, it doesn't even have to be that epic of a story, just as long as it has a good message to it at the end of everything when it's all said and done. And for me, Dragon Ball couldn't have that more in spades. You know, going from basically a nobody to becoming the most powerful person on the planet really helps put Goku into a huge, it really helps to paint this really beautiful picture of him as being the savior of Earth here, and helping to give hope to others who may not have that. They may not be able to have that, you know, that sense of morality, you know, that sense of belonging to a certain family or group of people for that matter. That's what I love the most about Dragon Ball here, just in general, is that the one thing it always manages to do and succeed at is to bring folks together. That's what I absolutely adore about the Dragon Ball series here. And it's just something that I can't get enough of, if I'm being honest. It's just one of those things that, like I said, it's the best part about Dragon Ball. It really happens to just bring people together from all walks of life, no matter who you are or where you're from. A lot of people, more often than not nowadays, instantly can recognize who Son Goku is. And that's truly telling for Akira Toriyama's influence on the world. It's safe to say that he did a lot of things well, but one of the things that Toriyama did great, and one of the things he was most exceptional at, was just that, like I said, bringing people together from all walks of life, all around the world, to simply gather together and have a good time and enjoy basically the light show, you could say here, as Goku and friends take on whichever villain of the week and of that particular story arc and race to save the day from peril. For me, that's always been something that Dragon Ball has excelled at, and I truly hope it continues to do so here in the coming years, if not decade, as I can only imagine what the team behind the anime and manga have cooking up for us all, so then we can finally get our teeth sunk into some more good old-fashioned Dragon Ball. Am I right? That's what we love to see. And who knows, maybe we'll get a lot more interesting fights and character arcs as well in the meantime here. It's really all a matter of perspective though. And while it is indeed sad that Akira Toriyama is no longer with us here, like I said initially here, probably one too many times so far at this point in the video, but it's the fact that yes, his legacy will live on, and us as fans are going to be able to continue that legacy proudly, and to help any new fans who are, of course, lost along the way. This has been my thoughts here, you could say, regarding Toriyama-san's passing and departure here. This has been a truly eye-opening time, like I said, and it's one that I'm never going to forget. One that's been a very, very interesting time, and one that I cannot help but reflect on here deeply, as it just seems like it was only yesterday that I was reading about an interview with Toriyama and his comments throughout the years on Dragon Ball Super and reviving this series with Battle of Gods and Resurrection F and whatnot. And then just like that, everything stopped. Everything came to a halt and ceased for a while there. It really is something though, and I can't help but be more thankful for him though, for introducing me to this series and having the utmost privilege to be able to enjoy this series for the many, many decades I've already been lucky to have done so. And not just me, but friends, family members, you name it. I've gotten so many people into Dragon Ball over the years, it's absolutely insane. But it's one thing, and all those sets of memories I wouldn't trade for the world. Those times going home from school when I was younger and calling up my friend group and us just gaming on the couch together, playing the Budokai games, the Budokai Tenkaichi games, Super Dragon Ball Z, Heck, even Dragon Ball Z sagas, yeah, the infamous worst Dragon Ball game in existence. We even had fun playing that together, and that was terrible. But faults and all, it's still Dragon Ball though, and it's still a pretty fun time when everything is said and done. Things are changing, that's one thing that's always constant. Just like Goku acquiring new forms and power-ups, that's all we can ever really do is just go with the flow here and accept change for what it is. It's all about really, I'd say, our perception and reaction to things here. And while I am sad that Akira Toriyama had to, well, leave when he did, it's still something though that I'll never forget. And it will always stick with me and appreciate not just Dragon Ball here, but all of the other anime and manga series that he's worked on over the many decades he had here. To be able to enjoy this incredible life with us as a community and help create these wonderful memories that we can now share with our own loved ones for many, many years to come. Take that for what you will, but these are just, I'd say, my closing thoughts here regarding Toriyama-san and his monumental impact on the world that cannot be understated enough here. With all this being said though, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this little tribute here that I cooked up for Akira Toriyama-san. And I hope you guys all enjoyed this, well, more personal side of me. But with all this being said, let me know down below what your favorite moment from Dragon Ball is, or even your favorite project or anime or manga or game series that Toriyama had the privilege to work on. Let me know down below. And why don't we just spread the admiration here for Toriyama and his timeless influence. That'll just about do it though for things on my end here. So until then though, I'll be catching you guys all on the flip side, and I'll see you in the next video. See you next time. Later, guys.
That's the end of you. Goodbye, Shenron.
So, I know it might be hard on Chi-Chi and Gohan, but don't bother wishing me back to life. Don't worry, we'll meet again one day. I'll be waiting for you.